trying to run down here. Come on, let me see you. Come on, Jehovah, say it.
Jehovah, you.
Say it.
I trust
In you.
in you.
Say it, y'all.
Oh Lord, Jehovah, you.
I trust. Say it.
I
Tell
trust
me how to do it, y'all.
in you.
I believe. Say it. Say it.
I believe you.
I trust.
I trust
Come on.
in you.
Oh, Lord.
Oh Lord, Jehovah, you.
Where y'all at? Come on. Come on.
I trust in you.
I believe. Say it.
I believe.
You are the God of miracles.
You are the God of miracles.
You are the God of wonder.
You are the God of wonder.
You are the God of power.
You are the God of power.
I believe. Say it.
I believe.
I believe.
I believe.
I believe.
I believe.
Say it, y'all.
I believe. I believe.
Come on, let your feet get heavy. Let's go. Let's go. Come on. Somebody make some noise in here. Come on, catch it, Jehovah. I trust.
Jehovah, you I trust and I believe.
What we
Yes,
believe
I
in, man? What we believe in?
I believe in God, man. I believe
What we
God,
trust in.
We trust in God all
As they
day,
say in
every
Back of the
day.
Money, in God we trust.
Yep. You know, and unfortunately, America say that all the time, but America doesn't really believe in the power of the Almighty.
How you know that? How you know the American don't believe in the power of Almighty?
But,
We're in America, aren't we?
listen, they fight to take. They actually want to take that expression, "In God we trust," out of it.
But we are in America, right?
Again, they want to take that, and the people in power want to take that.
What
out.
people in power? Oh, you mean your president?
No, not my president. Our president.
Our president?
I know you voted
President Trump?
Yeah, that's your president.
Or Biden?
Yeah, President Biden is my president now.
Oh, okay.
But I'm just saying that
Just wanted
the
to make
people
sure
on the,
that.
the people on the far left want to take it out of the Bible.
You mean the far left? We call the leftists?
Yeah, we call them leftists.
What happened to the middle of the road people, the moderates?
Well, the moderates want to keep it. Moderates and people like that. So it's hard to fight. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you and welcome another day, another Thursday to the village, giving honor to God for bringing us here. I am Roger Daly, your host. We're here with our co-host, John Sampson. Andre Doman, our producer. Sophia Willisey, our co-producer. Andre Doman, our executive producer. And
How you mess up Andre's name, man?
you know what I'm saying?
Come on,
Andre's
man.
gonna fire me soon. And then our co-hostess Joanne Bryant. For the next couple of weeks, she's going to join us a little bit late, a little bit after 7 to start with and come in. And then
Hold on. Why does Dr. Bryant get to join us late? How's that?
She spoke to the boss, Andre.
But we start 7 o'clock.
She spoke to the boss. She spoke to the boss.
So I need to make a complaint to HR then,
Yeah, you do.
because she
I
comes
need
in late. Why I need to be late.
Right? Yeah. You could tag her. A lot of things happening. Well, a lot of things. By the way, John, she said, what was that? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see her point. Hold on, let me get it again. What did she say? Stop it, John. So she's listening.
Why you listening, Doc? If you're listening, Doc, you should be here then. You should be here then. Why you listening, huh? Were you eavesdropping? What, you work for the feds now? You eavesdropping?
You know what I'm saying? She said it right out. There are a lot of things going on in the news.
There's a lot of things going on a little bit. Hey, look what I think Brunson, Virgin Atlantic, flew to the outwards of space.
Yes.
Now I think Jeff Bezos is next week. So it's very interesting.
You know.
That's what happens when you're a billionaire.
Yeah. Let me just say the following. Right. Who cares?
You know what?
Now I don't understand. So
You know why you should care?
Andre gave me a look on my face like when I said who cares. Who cares that they're flying out there? Tell me what's
This was what happens is you look at it in the overall context about someone's vision. This was an individual's vision to fly to space, and it just shows you there's nothing that we as individuals cannot do. We can do anything with the help of God, who has given us the strength, the ingenuity, and the health to do things that other people would look and think it's impossible. And this is a perfect example of what people think is impossible. God makes it possible. So this is what I look at. You know, his thing is, this is something that he wanted to do. This is something that he had a vision to do. And after a couple of trial runs, he accomplished his vision. And now this just shows you that we can just do whatever we want to do as long as we put our mind to it and the effort. So this is a perfect example for a lot of our kids in our communities. Just because you may be born in poverty does not limit your ability to achieve your dreams.
Okay, from that angle.
Oh, shucks, here we go.
From that angle, I get it. But again, I'm thinking about the $1 billion, right? The millions of dollars spent, right? Which can be used for education, which can be used for to job creation, infrastructure building, right? I'm thinking of all of that. I think I hear you for a personal feat. I get it, but in terms of there's so many other. I agree with you, Joanne. There are too many other problems out here. Gun violence. You know.
Hold on. She too busy. What are you tweeting? Oh, you got too many other problems. Where you at? What problems?
Right. So you have all of these different. It is really hot in here.
It is hot.
It is hot, right? It's very hot.
We need to talk to the producer.
No. All right. It's really hot.
And nobody ain't taking off their clothes because it's hot in here. You know that song? It's getting hot in here. Now you can take off all your clothes. I know Dr. Bryant's going to say something about that.
Yeah, she's not. She's just going to give and say, I'm saying none of that. She's not going to say. She won't comment on that. Unless she's going to say, I'll join you. She's not going to say.
Nah, Doc. You stay where you at.
I was just looking at it, you know. But yeah, so that's one. What else is happening? We have while my brain is going. No, I saw that, but there's something. Oh, Michael Holden, right? Michael Holden, the great cricket player, is talking about white privilege, and he was talking about that, and he's a well-known international cricketer. You know, one of the interesting thing he spoke about that he personally did not on the cricket field, which is I'm thankful for, did not encounter any issues with racism, but when he stepped outside of the racial, off the field, the racial component, like when he talked about when he went to Australia, simple things like he was informed that he was going with a white woman at the point, and the woman they were like, okay, put the white woman in front so you could hail the cab. So the cab saw him as a black man, turned off the vacant light, and as soon as it didn't pick him up, and as soon as he passed, we turned on back the light to go pick up the next person.
Well, come on,
right?
We know that exists as reality.
Andre, double check for me, please. My mic is good. Can you hear me? Because I can hear here on the headset. Oh, I got it. This thing. Right. So at the end of the day, they were talking about the different. He was talking about that. So that's a big issue.
Well, we know it exists. So I mean, there's nothing. It shouldn't be strange, unless you're totally oblivious to society.
Yeah.
You know, racism exists. It's powerful. And I respect the racist that's overt, not covert.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, so.
Me too. Because when you do I always talk about that, right? When you do the overt racist, at least you know where they stand.
I know where they stand.
Right. He was also talking about. I forgot the name of the father and son. who the father got fined or suspended. He's a car racer, and he was talking about that how the father got suspended because he made a racist comment on his own social media page that got into the public, and then by so doing, they suspended him, and the son was happy that his father got suspended, right? Right. Happy that his father got suspended because he said now he could have a conversation about race.
Right.
You know, and that's important. You know, I am glad for all of my European American friends that I have, who actually make a concerted.
When you say European American, what do you mean by European?
Because you know they call us African American. I don't like that.
Why you call them European American?
Because
are they from Europe?
I don't like African American.
Are they from Europe?
Huh?
Are they from
I
Europe?
don't care.
But why you call it European American?
I like white and black, but they call us African Americans. I'm not African American, by the way.
I'm a person of color.
Yeah, well, I'm black.
I'm a person of color who is dark, who's brown skin.
Well, I got you. But all people are a person of color, right? In my mind, I could be wrong, but that's just my thought process, right? But if you're gonna say African American, right?
I'm a person of African heritage.
That's true.
Which I'm American.
I believe that we're all.
Let's drill it down. Let's drill it down. Drill this down.
Let me tell me if I'm wrong. Let me tell you exactly how I look at it.
All right.
Well, since we're talking about race,
right?
I look at us as Americans,
right?
Not black, not white, not Chinese, not Jewish, not this,
right?
And the moment that we begin to think about us as Americans,
right,
then we no longer. Right, we no longer have to start thinking about the racial component and racism. Until we get to that point, that's why all of these different titles, and sometimes I get it, right, because of all the historical malfeasance that has happened to the Black people around the world, especially in the Caribbean and America, England and stuff. So I get that. And a way to identify, I get that. But I want to get on my Martin Luther King moment where he said, not that one, but he said one day when the black man and the white, I don't remember all of the.
No, but we got to, if I think we are too concerned about the color. We're too concerned about the color of someone, as Martin Luther King. What is the content of someone's character? So whether a person is black, white, green, or yellow, Democrat, Republican, we look upon the content of that individual's character.
I agree.
You know, and that's what we need to judge people. We're never going to get to a point like that because, you know why we don't get to a point like that? Because we have allowed the media.
I don't think it's just media.
No, we have allowed the media to craft the argument. We have allowed it to craft the argument. We have allowed it to perpetuate stereotypes, you know. And why do you think it's so important when you go to these third world countries like third world countries and also powerful countries like Russia and China? What do the first thing they want to control? They want to control all forms of communication, so they can indoctrinate you to what they're spewing. You know, this is it, and you look at Iran, and Iran wants to limit the amount of communication that people receive from the outside world, so they do not understand what's going on. So the whole point is, you know, knowledge is power. Let me limit the amount of knowledge a person has, so I can continue to have control over them and control their mindsets. So I think a lot of times, you know, take for example, we talk about the mayoral race, and it was very interesting when I was looking at some of the newspapers and how the Daily News and the Times supported Catherine Garcia, and when they were doing articles, and Eric and other candidates, particularly Eric, and knowing his position, they always seem to be slanted. And then you got the editorial boards. Who are these individuals on the editorial boards? Are they reflective of the people? Are they really reflective of the reader, or are they reflective of their own ideologies and what they think or what they perceive society or the city should look at? Half of them don't even come to the communities of color to hang out. And also, like, I look at Fox News. They always go on these diners. Let me go to a diner. I never see them come to a diner in the urban communities. I never see them come to a diner. Exactly. We're a Caribbean restaurant where you're not only stew peas, but you got jerk chicken. I don't see them coming there.
I agree.
I don't see him. I don't see him getting the pulse of the people. And another thing, since I'm on a tangent now.
I see you're not on a tangent, you're a bully pulse.
Yeah, and it's this whole voting rights. We're complaining about voting rights. We're complaining about the restrictions that the states are putting in so individuals cannot vote. Let me tell you this, listeners and ladies and gentlemen. You cannot if you have your mind made up that you're going to vote, nothing should be able to deter you. How many obstacles they put in their way. You know what? We just learn the game. We just get better at the game.
Can I just say with that, not only that, but you put yourself to vote and beat them at their own game.
Beat them. And that's what happened in Georgia. We beat them at their own game. But now they didn't like it. Now they changed. Now they're trying to tweak the rules and change the rules. The bottom line is change them all you want to. We're still going to beat you. Yeah. We're still going to beat you because you know what? We're going to take the time. We're going to learn. And that means if we have to spend, because there's a perception that we're impatient. People of color, minorities are impatient. Frustrate them enough, they'll just walk away and they say, why bother? And that's the whole point. So, the voting rights, the federal voting rights, I'm all for it. But at the same time, you got Manchin and them, who knows what Manchin is going to do? I don't know what Manchin is going to do. The bottom line is that, you know what? If the states are going to implement rules and regulations like that, you know what? Let's spend our time learning those rules and regulations, and there's loopholes in those rules and regulations, and let's move forward. Let's stop moaning and groaning. Let's beat them at their own game.
I agree. Speaking of politics a little bit on a different subject, Cuomo and looking at Cuomo and Adams are already working together.
Let me fall in my chair. Let me hold my heart.
Yeah.
Let me hold my heart.
He gave up on what's the other guy's name?
You mean De Blasio?
De Blasio, yeah.
Yeah, but you know what? Don't get me started on Cuomo too.
Before I do anything else, John, I'll talk about anything. A couple of things, right? One, I want to.
This is a toast to your health.
To my health, but I was thinking.
To Andre.
I want you to taste.
God bless you.
This is done by a local person who is making some punches.
Hey, Dr. Brian, you ain't getting no punch today.
Yeah, because Dr. Brian's scared to come to the studio. She won't get her job. Right? So this is the peanut. I think this is either was it peanut. I didn't taste it.
Peanut punch.
So this is peanut punch, all natural, no sugar.
It is. Tastes very good. Tastes very well.
And it's a good price. It's $5. Right?
It can do a little touch of rum. It'd be nice.
Mm-hmm.
El Dorado rum from Guyana. 15.
Yeah, listen, you're telling that. I'm telling you that. But going back to what we were saying about Eric Adams, they got together on the gun violence. I didn't hear you. Just talk. You can talk. Who's? I'm sorry. Eminem Productions. He's actually going to text me out and let me know the name. I'm waiting for him to text me back to let me know the full name of.
Ladies and gentlemen, this Eminem Peanut Punch, it is truly all natural, and this is what we need. We need to in our communities. We need to get rid of these food deserts in our communities with healthy foods. Fill us up with all the saturated fats and.
We're not asking for this is good. Tell me we need 3 for next week. So it's absolutely a conspiracy.
We're up here eating. We're up here drinking peanut punch, while our producer Andre is eating pigeon pea soup from Island Grove.
No more shut up, man. conspiracy. Why you having drinks from Dr. Brian off? That's from Dr. Brian. You never tell her to take off. Tell Dr. Brian to come to the studio.
Sophia, conspiracy.
Right? Sophia's
I don't like that word conspiracy, boy.
So a couple of things real fast, and then we're gonna, ladies and gentlemen, we try to get back to them as soon as possible. Let's start some New York Commissioner Dermot Shea. He's talking about the surge in gun violence in New York City, which we know, and that's not addressing the public. I spoke about that a lot. How the progressive are talking about the police brutality, which is something that needs to be discussed, but you fail to talk about, get up in your bully pulpit and talk about how we are knocking each other off left and right. Right.
Well, you know, Roderick, you know that people don't want to hear the truth. People always want to find someone to blame. Let's blame the police officers. It's easy. It's easy. It's difficult to call your own brother and sister out for the crimes that they are perpetuating on the community.
But you know why? I've been thinking about this. The number one reason is because it's close to home. Mm-hmm. It's like the mother or father or relative who goes to court to defend a serial killer because it's their child. Mm-hmm. And you don't want to, you can't bring it to yourself to say that this child is a killer or a bad person. Obviously, nothing is, ladies and gentlemen, don't chastise me. I'm not saying it's 100% anybody. You get what I'm saying? But it's kind of like your kid is a robber and a thief. And you see it. Mm-hmm. A rapist, whatever the crime is, whatever heinous crime it is, it's close to home. So it's hard to say that this is happening. But make the police do something that is bad. Mm-hmm. You refuse to go out and say,
well, it's denial. It's
right.
the denial in the family. It's denial in the family structure. We have to come to terms with who we are, where we are, and how can we get out of the situations that we're in. It's all that comes to the realization, and we fail to realize. We rather perpetuate, we rather avoid, we rather procrastinate instead of, you know, a friend of mine, she says, straight talk leads to straight understanding.
Why don't?
You know, and
because you got sugarcoated. Andre asked why.
I'm saying, why is it that we wouldn't want to tell the truth? Is it because it's
why don't we? You know why? Because it's uncomfortable, and also we're embarrassed.
Yeah. People don't like to hear.
You know, people fail to realize that we are hypocrites at times. And you know, do as I say, but not as I do.
Right, but and who's true? Like some people feel like they can just tell you the truth.
Right.
But then when you tell them the truth, they get upset. Mm-hmm. Right. I actually disagree, Jennifer. He did get a lot of the West Indian support.
Oh, definitely, Jennifer. I totally disagree with you.
Yeah,
he got if you look at, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Patrick.
No. I'm not saying no. You could answer. I just want to make sure the audience know what comment we were responding to. So, Jennifer wrote on Facebook that some of these politicians do not visit their neighborhoods. Eric Adams is grassroots. I'm surprised that he did not get the West Indian support in Brooklyn. And you were saying,
well, I'm surprised he did get the West Indian support in Brooklyn, and honestly, it was that West Indian support in Central Brooklyn that actually pulled him out to victory.
You know, I do have a question for Jennifer while you're saying that, right? So, who do you believe got the support, Jennifer? Who do you believe got the support? If it's not Eric, right? What you were saying is
because Central Brooklyn. Because if you look down, you know, I had the opportunity to read and listen to breakdowns of Eric's victory. Eric's in the areas in the 57th Assembly District, that's downtown Clinton Hill, those areas. Maya Wiley won those areas. Mm-hmm. She got over 12,000 votes. Eric got about 7,000 votes. Mm-hmm. And also, he also Kathleen Garcia in the Park Slope, in the Brooklyn Heights areas, she bested Eric. However, it was Central Brooklyn
came up,
Bed-Stuy, Brownsville, East New York, East Flatbush. And also the southern tier of Brooklyn, Eric cleaned up. He cleaned up. And remember, he only won by 8,400 votes. He cleaned up in areas of central Brooklyn, southeast Queens, Harlem, Washington Heights, and the Bronx. He annihilated them in the Bronx. Mm-hmm. And also he won Staten Island. So that just tells you, but it was the Caribbean people over here in East Flatbush, in that central Brooklyn corridor, that really supported Eric Adams. They gave me support.
And Queens is a part.
In Queens, yeah. Oh, definitely. Southeast Queens?
Yeah, with the Caribbean population.
Definitely. Serious Caribbean.
So that's very, 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 very important that we understand that. A couple of other things we want to touch on a little bit. Yes, come out. Okay. I did make that a comment. So a couple other things we'll talk about later, but one of the things that we want to touch on is fitness within our Black communities, Caribbean community, and what we're going to do for the summer, right? To gain, I hear a lot of women, guys thinking about women saying, I need to be able to fit into my bathing suit to go hang out on the beach, right? So what do I need to do, right? What do I need to do to make it to the beach? And so, we spoke a little bit about the natural drinks produced by M&M Productions, but we just had some of the peanut punch, which was natural, no sugar. That's here, but he makes other juices. But there are other things that you can do. And our first guest, he's going to be talking a lot about helping yourself out, not just the women who want to fit the bathing suit, but the guys who want to fit the bathing suit. Right, you can talk, Andre. Why you point?
I don't wear no bathing suit.
But young people, that's
right. And Andre's remind me also to make sure we add some young people in there because you want to talk about young people. I guess he wants to talk about the lifestyle, right? So building that lifestyle. So before I say anything else, let's bring him on, right? Right. Dude, yes. You look like you're older than my son, dog. Right? I can't hear nothing.
Can you hear me?
yeah.
But you can hear. Everybody can hear, right there.
I can hear faintly. I don't hear.
You don't hear me. No. Can you hear him? Talk, Wesley.
Yes. Hello. Hello.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Hello.
Yeah. We got you.
All right. Perfect.
So, welcome to the village.
Westland's frozen there.
Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us right here on the village, 92.1 GD Radio on the FM dial. This is Roger Daly, your host. John Sampson's right next to me, our co-host, and Joanne Bryant will be joining us soon. Knowing that the
Dr. Joanne Bryant
will join us in a minute. Just remind
along with Andre and Sophia, our producers.
Yes, I'm reminded of that. So know that we're dedicated to empowering the community to live a healthy, safe, and financially capable life through education, helping each one of us in realizing our dreams at any age and at any point, starting from today. Success is not just spoken, it is done. You could catch us on YouTube if you missed the show, at the Village Talk Show. Catch us on, join our page. What is it? Like our page, Andre? Like our page on the Village Talk Show on Facebook. And also, you can get us at Roderick F. Daly, at Andre Dolman, at Dr. John Bryan. Is John up yet? Is John up? Still soon. Audience, if you know this, right? How many months now? Saying and then Sophia Willissy, right? So
soon come.
Yeah, John be saying soon come. Real Guyanese boy, never come anywhere, right? Guyanese, they always say soon come and never show up. So welcome, Wesley. Mr. Eugene.
Yes.
I see the little muscle there, man. What's going on? Huh? Oh, okay. So Andre's like really proud right now. You're his classmate, right?
Yes.
That's what he's telling me. That's what I'm telling. Welcome to the village.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. So tell us, why is fitness so important to you? That's going to be my first question. Why? And you're a person of color, and we want to know. Because we always say that we need to get out there. We're not out there enough. But seeing you on the air, obviously, that changes how things look, right? So talk to us a little bit. Did you hear me?
So fitness is important to me. Can you hear me?
Yeah, but you're frozen. I don't know, your setup is a little frozen, but yeah.
Yeah. Let me try to move my Wi-Fi closer to the area where I'm in.
All right. While he's doing that, John, you're a fitness person. I know you and I talked a lot about that.
Burpees all day, baby.
Huh?
Burpees all day.
Yeah, my son, you know, my Grayson, before he, you know, at 5 or 6, he was doing like 50, 60, 70, 80 push-ups a day. Now that
What?
Yeah, he was doing.
How much?
It got to the point where he's doing like about 80 or 100 a day. That's where he got to.
Wow.
Wow. How old is Grayson?
He's 9. Yo,
That's nice.
yeah, he was hitting like some monster shot in baseball, but man, he was slow. But he believed in fitness. My wife, you know, my wife is a big fitness person as well. Yeah, so talk to us about fitness and why is it so important, especially now the summer's around.
Well, is it to me or just in general?
In general, Gigi. Yeah.
Yeah, in terms like fitness is important because I feel like especially like in the it's basically a representation of how we take care of our body, you know. So like if you truly love, you know, what God has given you, you want to just really take good care of it. And there are a lot of benefits to just being in really good shape. As
That's like your
know,
looks, Gene. Like if you want to look good, you got to take care of it. You gotta take care
there
of
you
look,
go.
right?
There you go. And,
So,
and
you
you
know,
know,
only thing I can say, you know, Roderick don't care about his looks, so he's been taking care of it. Like, you know.
no, you look good. You look good. You look good.
We're gonna beat up John. That's all. Don't worry about it.
So yeah, I'm sorry, I'm a bit nervous, but yeah.
Well,
fitness-
Eugene, you don't need to be nervous, man. Tell us about how would you, if I come to you and I say, Eugene, you know what I'm saying?
No, wait, don't ask that question. I want
Yes.
to stick on this point first. Right? When you think of mental health,
Mhm.
right, you talk about God protecting what God gave you, right?
Yes.
But when you talk about physical health, does it address your mental health as
Yes,
well?
yes, it does.
Why is that so important? Because people need to understand that they kind of go together. Like creating the physical also affect the mental and the social,
Correct.
right? So,
So-
from your experience, what do you want to tell the audience about that?
So yeah, like in terms of fitness and correlation to mental health, it has a huge factor, you know, because if we have a positive body image, it would definitely help us feel better about ourselves, and just basically how we like allow like go into certain spaces and just do certain things. If we don't feel good about ourselves, we might not post social media picture or like
I love that you touched on it.
you know, we might not post it and you know, because we feel like, oh, we're being body shamed or anything like that. So when it comes to mental health and being in good shape, it's a really good benefit.
Eugene? That's you, Eugene?
No,
We can hear you. We can hear you.
you guys can, yes.
You gotta put that on vibrate though, so it don't ring no more.
All right, man. All right.
Your friends are like, he's on TV. I gotta call you up right now. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, Eugene, you're right about that. Your body can really have an impact upon your mental state, your mental stability. Because I noticed, you know, when I was a young kid growing up, I was very heavy set. And there's certain things I didn't want to wear because I'm always was thinking that somebody was looking at me, making jokes about my weight. You know, you heard the fat jokes. You had skinny boys like Roderick would make, you know, fat jokes. Kids like myself who were heavy set kids. We weren't fat. We were just big boned.
Well, just want to make sure that we're clear, right? He's older than me. So he left my 11 before I got to my 11. All right. So I just want to make sure that I just want to let you know that we're about 4 years apart. So, all right. So whatever he's saying, he's full of malarkey.
Nah, he looked pretty young. Y'all, you guys both look pretty young, full of health.
You're just trying to toot our horn. But thank you, though. We appreciate it.
No, I do appreciate it, man. I appreciate it.
We're old fogies. We're my 11 graduate almost 40 years. Right? 40 years plus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm closer to 60 than I'm closer to 25. I tell you that much.
Yeah, same here. Right.
But you guys are aging gracefully, so that's a good
You know
thing.
why? Why is that? Because I think, one reason is because we take care of our health, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
Physical fitness is important, and it's really important, Eugene, and you know it, Eugene. It's all about being having that physical, the physical aspect of the physical literacy to understand our bodies and the max in which we can push our bodies. There was a book I read about a guy named David Goggin, and the book was You Can't Hurt Me. And he's a Navy SEAL. But when he started out, as you said, Eugene, he was a young kid upstate New York who was heavy set. He weighed a little bit over 300 pounds, young kid. He was nowhere near physically the physical specimen that he needed to be in order to be recruited by the Navy SEALs. However, he made up his mind. And one thing he learned, that your body may say no, but your mind can push you to where your body does not want to go. And he went from running just basic marathons to becoming an ultra marathoner, running 100 miles. And I say that to say this, is that your mental aspect can really control your physical disposition.
That's true.
You're a teacher, right? What do you teach?
I'm a physical education teacher in health.
Okay.
I teach pre-K to 5th graders.
Okay, so you start them, introduce them, teach them when they're young or something, right?
Right.
So train the child in the way he should.
And when they get older, they will not depart from it.
Mm-hmm. Right? Or train, whichever. Train, I like the word train better than teach, but that's a different conversation, right? What do you see for young people at an early age that creates a disadvantage that could be lifelong? What are one of those things that you see?
One thing that I see, it's kids being stuck on their phone for too long, and just given these devices where it just
for the record, John is also at his age, he's stuck on his phone too.
It takes away from
Eugene. His phone is right in front of him. The phone right in front of him. He's playing with.
You guys are working, so it's fine. You guys have our excuse. But yeah,
let's stop interrupting you. All right, we're gonna not interrupting. Eugene, we want to hear from you, Eugene.
Yeah, so that's the thing. It's like kids expecting nowadays, they're staying home and they're not going out or to play because they're learning how to code, they're learning how to do these good things, but there's often at times no balance to like spend equal time going outside, doing physical activities, just going in the jingle gym, like just doing these little things is enough to help. Like 60 minutes a day is a lot. It's big. So every kid who have that opportunity, who can go out and play for 60 minutes a day, there are great rewards to that, especially, how with the pandemic happening, giving them that outlet to go out and just burn out all that energy would definitely help them mentally.
I have I bought a little trampoline, right, in the house. It's no more than, a diameter of 3 feet, maybe 4 tops. And I say to my 6-year-old, because my 9-year-old, the one we're talking about with the push-ups, he's out playing baseball every day, right? I try to get them off, John, like what Wesley is saying, like Eugene is saying. I try to get them off the iPad on a regular basis. But you're right, though. That iPad thing is addictive, but I try to get him on the trampoline. So he'll sit in the living room while he's watching Roblox, which is annoying as heck.
We've been playing too.
right? And so I while he's watching, because he watched, I guess, their highlights from YouTube and things like that with the roadblock,
Mhm.
so I have to jump in the living room, right? I do that, like you said, the 60 minutes. So talk about, when you talk about physical literacy, and John touched on it a little bit, right? What does that mean? I mean, what does physical literacy mean?
So, physical literacy means, having the knowledge, the confidence, the skills, and the motivation to do the activities. So, when it comes to doing certain movement, often at times, like, I don't know if you guys notice, does any of you guys go to the gym or anything like that?
Yeah, I go to the gym.
All right. So when you go to the when you go to the gym, like, how confident do you feel to just jump in and start exercising? Like,
I feel very, I feel very confident.
Now I do.
all right.
When
But
I was young, I was intimidated.
do you guys notice, like, the people who might be out there, but they might just be walking around, like, looking at machines, like, often at times,
That was
appear
me.
to be like,
Hey, let me tell you something.
And that's
Eugene.
why
I hear a voice. I hear a voice.
how are you? And that's why it's important to get a trainer so that you're doing it correctly.
Just come in.
that is true. However,
Wesley, she just came and just interrupted you, right?
I didn't say who that.
Who that?
Who that?
Yeah.
Who that?
however, like,
So you were talking
when the
about the
kids is
walking around.
young, right, and they have that physical literacy, that understanding, and then they'll feel confident enough to do the movement. And then when they feel confident, they will practice that skill till they, master it. And then once they master it, they'll have that motivation to just move on to the next thing, and that the cycle just continues. So that's the thing about physical literacy. Just like when you are taking a math class, you have to learn the addition, subtractions, like these different type of things. It's the same thing with physical literacy. You have to learn how to walk, jog, run, and do the little small things, and then you build up to doing bigger things that requires coordination and just adding different type of movements together, where you're and building muscle memory and everything like that.
I agree with you. If you look at it, if you're going, it depends upon the times you go in the gym, right? If you go in the gym early in the morning, if you go to gym 5 o'clock, you go to gym 6 o'clock in the morning, those people know exactly what they want to do.
Exactly.
But then when you get the later on crew that comes in 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock,
Who don't want to be there?
who don't want to be there, you see them walk around, check out the machines, talk before they even start exercising. They done talk like 20 minutes. You know what I'm saying? No concentration
Are you
whatsoever.
talking about yourself, John?
Nah, hey Doc, man, you
He's
need to
actually
come.
talking about Dr. Brian.
Come in there. I start working out 5 o'clock in the morning.
You two are. That's true.
5 o'clock in the morning.
That's a good question.
Yes.
What is the better time to work out? I know anytime you work out is good, but what is the best time to work out?
I would say for me, it's in the morning. The reason being is because it just give me that positivity just starting out my day. Like any bad vibe that I'm feeling when I wake up, I go to the gym, get a good sweat in, and it starts out your day. You feel refreshed. You go home, you take a cold shower or a warm shower, whatever, and you start your day. I think, that's the best time, like the morning. But for different people, it might, not everybody have the time. So it varies, So
Eugene, I agree with you 100%, because when I work out in the morning and I go, I feel that much more alert during the day, and one of the things that I would love to see, especially for our youth, this whole youth tribe athletics, something like that, so we can teach our tribes, teach our youth about the importance of how a good workout, how good recreation or good workout can really stimulate you mentally, and which can carry over into the classrooms.
Yes, I agree.
And so talk to us about on both levels, right? What does a parent? One of the things that I try to reinforce with parents, especially when the kids are not in school, to work out with the children, right? Let them actually. You don't watch TV and tell them to go work out, but both of you work out for that 60 minutes, right? Because
Yes.
I do remind parents all the time: children don't do what you say; they do what you do.
That's true. That's
Like,
true. That's powerful.
if you curse like a sailor, I assure you, your child will curse like a sailor, unless the child has some kind of another psychological block, right? If you watch TV, like whatever the term is, like you're getting paid to do it. Like what's that? That's a TV rating thing that people check, right?
Nielsen.
Like you work for Nielsen rating, then your child will also watch TV. So, what are some advice that you would have for a parent, when it comes to physicality, in terms of your physical literacy, whatever the case is, that parents can either do together or advice that they can have for the kid?
So one thing is, most of the audience are Caribbean parents, and often at times, I don't know how, in terms of the level of competency when it comes to like, physical activities and everything. One thing parents can just do if they're not sure, just if you take the kids out to the park, they'll figure things out themselves.
Yeah.
They'll be running around, going up and down the jungle gym, the slides, all of these little things that they'll be playing cups and rubbers with their friends. These are opportunities for them to work on their social skills and as well as be physically active in their own way.
So Eugene, so what is this Youth Tribe Athletics? Tell us about it.
So Youth Tribe Athletics is it's my business. I recently started it. It's something that I've had in mind for years, and I finally just had the strength to say, you know what, I don't want to put this gift that God have given me and just like bury it, but I really want to like make the best of like my passion as a teacher to reach kids in my area, because there's a lot of parks who are underutilized. There's no program going on, and so I live in the Crown Heights area, and so I started Youth Tribe Athletics because I want to contribute, my gift to the world and just help create a better generation that's coming, teaching them soccer, teaching them flag football, track and field, everything that I do as a physical education teacher, and through just building the whole child.
And so this is every day. What is it like?
And
So
what's the age?
So the age group is from 6 to 12. However,
Great.
you have kids who have that, that physical development. They are 5 years old and they're able to still join because their skill set is something of a sixth grade of a person who's 6 years old, or someone could be 13 years old, but their skill set is not really up to par and they still can come. So I cap it at 12 years old. However, if a parent feels that, hey, my child could still use benefit from this from my program, please send them.
So what's the location?
So the location, it's Mittsfield, which is in Albany, and it's on Albany and New York Avenue.
Mm-hmm. Now, what's
Hamilton Mittsfield? That's the name. That's the location. 608 Lefford Avenue. Sorry about that.
No.
Yes.
What suggestion would you give to older kids who don't want to work out? To parents for older kids?
Yes. So find out what they're interested in, and try to compromise with them in some kind of way. even maybe taking them out, walking, because exercise is something that is planned. You like just because you're gonna walk out to the bus. Oh yeah, I walk to the bus. I exercise. No, you have to mentally plan it and say, hey, I'm gonna walk to the bus. That is the meaning of exercising, where you planning to do the thing, not just happen by circumstance.
Mhm. Okay.
I'm just stealing some of Andre's thing. Oh, you can't see it, right? I'm stealing some of Andre's peanut punch because he's not drinking it, and Joanne is allergic.
Give me
All right, so don't mind us. We're trying to eat healthy as well. You know, John brought up a good point, Wesleyan. Am I pronouncing that right, by the way? Wesleyan?
Yeah, Wesleyan.
Wesleyan, like Wesleyan College?
Yes.
All right, so John brought up a good point where he talked about the chubby kid, right?
Why you gotta say the chubby kid, man?
I just used the words, right? But it's a real issue.
I said big boned. I didn't say
No,
chubby.
you said chubby
I
first.
said big boned.
And that have very low self-esteem,
Yeah, I sure had it when I was young. Yeah.
right? And the parent themselves, they're yelling at the kid. Why don't you go to the park? While you're not going with them. What do you say to that parent and to that kid to get them to a program like Youth Tribe? Because that has to happen, right? And then you see those same children in your physical education class, right?
Well,
And those are the children who are going to grow up to fail physical education. And a lot of them also end up living unhealthy lifestyle unless they do something transformational.
The diet.
Well, it's not just diet, right? We need to get them out to exercise. So the diet is just one. I don't believe in diets, by the way, and I'll talk about
No. The reason why I say diet is if a parent is only feeding their children fast food and that's all.
Right. I agree. That's a different component. I want to know, to get the kid out who's chubby on the physical level, what do you say to that parent or to that child? How do you motivate them? Because at the end of the day, those same children are going to be in your physical education class. And you're also talking about the physicality of the person, right? And then we're going to address the diet thing that Dr. Bryant's talking about, because that's also beyond relevant. That's why we have in the peanut punch, right? Go ahead.
Well, first thing I would say, as a parent, like Dr. Brian said, the diet.
The H is silent, just Spanish. The H is silent. Joanne is good.
Joanne, got it. So something like that. Well, first, you don't want to yell at the kid. You don't want to yell at them. You want to just basically.
Wait, hold on.
Yes. Huh?
Vous êtes haïtien?
Wait, what?
Tu peux penser, monsieur?
Oh, pretty.
Un petit peu, parce que elle est haïtienne.
Oui,
elle a. Joanne. Oh, man, he doesn't even speak French, man. Forget it.
No, you said Joanne is Haitian? No, she's not.
Yes, that's what I said.
No, she's not. Are you?
Why you saying?
Oh, okay, cool.
So I'm just, the reason I'm saying that, because Andrew told us that you're Haitian, so you should know how to pronounce her name. That's what he's trying to say.
Oh, okay.
My name is Joanne.
Joanne.
What's your name?
Joanne.
Jean?
Joanne.
Joanne.
Yeah,
Joanne.
Go ahead, Wesley. You were saying
Joanne.
That sounds nice. Joanne. Joanne Bryant.
No, she actually had a real Haitian last name. It's Joanne Pierre.
Joanne. Oh, Pierre.
Yeah.
Joanne Pierre.
Pierre Bryant.
Okay, can we get back to his thing? Oh, Lord.
Wesley,
Yes.
we love to bother Joanne, right? Because anytime we start talking about her, she does that. So we just love to bother her on the air. Because once you start talking about her, she's like, all right. So anyway, so you're talking about the young kid who is a little chubby, or might not even be chubby, might be too skinny, because you have both too, right? You have the kid who's too slim.
It's all about creating a safe space. If you create a safe space for a child to
Where is that safe space?
go, huh?
Where?
What do you mean?
Where would that safe space be for that child?
So, for example, if you send a child to a camp, the adult there has to make sure that everyone is basically respectful and mindful that, hey, everyone is here to accomplish the same goal. And that is to get better at doing something that they themselves are not good at yet, you know? Because
how does Youth Tribe do that? Help them to do that, motivate them?
well, through physical literacy. So that is how I do that. Like, if you focus on teaching a child like physical literacy, and often at times just when they are not when they're, first of all, they're not going to succeed the first time that they try something new. You have to already implement that in their head and say, hey, listen, it's okay, but this is how you go about doing XYZ. And eventually, you know, you ask them question and you break down the skill set, and they will get it. So kids, if you are able to motivate a child, if you're able to make sure that the environment is safe, you giving them confidence to try the skill, it's only going to be a matter of time before you accomplish it.
And then in the
I
process,
got you.
you're building leadership in them in the sports.
Exactly.
that they're doing. So that's
You know,
important.
the other thing that I remind parents, and I remind parents and children, right, is that because you're big does not mean that you're
Why are you looking at me, Roger?
right? Because you're not.
Why you gotta look at me, Roger? Why you gotta look at me, Roger?
Because you're both exemplars of what I'm talking about right now.
You know? Why you gotta look at me?
We're both exemplars.
Giving me a complex, man. Why y'all looking at me?
All right. But because you're big doesn't make you unhealthy,
There we go again.
and doesn't because you're slim doesn't mean that you're healthy. And a lot of people have that negative perception that because I'm a big person, I am unhealthy. And I think it goes back to what John
There you go.
was
Here, go ahead. Let me see.
saying, right? It's going back to what John was saying, is that building that self-esteem, right? Because if you build the self-esteem, because hey, you can't be a skinny football player. It's just not gonna happen. Right? It's just not gonna work, right? But you can do other events on the track and field as a big person. So kids, so you're not gonna be you might not be the 5,000 meter runner if you're 300 pounds, but you could do javelin, you could do shot put, you could do discus, the hammer, all of these things with proper exercise and training. So how do you, that's one of the conversations. So now let's go back to Joanne's question as well, right? Because that comes also with the dieting and the exercise. How do you incorporate the physical literacy with proper diet and exercise? I told you earlier that people talk to me all the time, and I remind them, I don't believe in dieting. I don't believe in dieting because dieting allows your weight to fluctuate at a regular basis, right? Because, and when your body lacks nutrients, it's going to store whatever you give it. And that affects the what do you call it? The up and down, the yo-yo effect.
Metabolism.
Right. Okay. So going back to how do you address, again, Dr. Joan Brown's question, I'm still in her question, but address the dietary habits with the physical component as you meet with each child.
Well, that's tough, being that I don't stay home with these are my kids, they are coming to camp and everything. What I try to do is I'll bring like a bag and I'll show them like a bag that would say GMO and non-GMO, and I'll say, all right, so if you look at this is something that you might want to have a moderation of. You might not want to eat too much of it, because when it comes to dieting, you also got to look at people's circumstances, you know, and you can't tell a kid not to eat this when that's what the parents are able to give them. And so that's the thing. In my program, what I do is I just talk to them about stuff like that. I tell them about Red 40, like how these things, like the colors, like how these things can cause some more of like learning delays and all of that stuff. So ultimately, it rests upon the parent to cook a healthy meal at home, but kids who come to the program will be taught about these things, and they can tell them parents that. But at the end of the day, when money's given, and
Can I make a suggestion to you?
yes,
What you just said in regards to the red dye,
yeah,
the red dye, many parents don't know. So it's
yes,
important that we educate our parents on. You said GMO. Some parents don't even know what it stands for. So
genetically modified object.
right, you know that automatically, but many
Yeah.
parents are unaware of what it stands for. So it's
Mhm.
important that when you're teaching them, not only are you teaching them, but you're teaching the parents as well, because many of us are illiterate in regards to proper eating.
Yes.
Until later on in life, until you have to go to the doctor and say, "Hey, you're overweight," or "Hey, this is affecting your liver," or "Hey, this is affecting how you're learning." So that is important thing that whoever joins your camp, that you educate not only the children but also the parent. Spread knowledge.
Well said. Well said, Sean.
I have a
For my name.
I have a gripe, right? Right, Wesley? I have a gripe. I heard you. But my producers tell us we're running out of time. I always cuss parents and children, right? About the concept of a gym versus physical education. I often feels like when they talk about gym, that it doesn't place a priority, right? It doesn't place a priority on the class itself. So like a lot of parents, when they go to physical education class, they don't want to see the physical education teachers. That's not important, right? A lot of parents, I don't know if you experienced that, but I experienced that both as a teacher of physical education, or as a school administrator, and just deal with parents. Okay, that class can wait. What do you think? What are your thoughts on that?
I agree with you. I'm not going to say some parents are very supportive, because I have good rapport with my students, and often at times, even if the parents doesn't want to see you, the kid will be like, "Oh, I want to go say bye to Mr. Eugene," and they will come in the gym and we'll talk briefly. But I totally understand. Like, parents does need to understand that physical education is a subject for a reason.
Mhm.
America has a huge obesity rate.
Yeah.
We need to take action. If we don't, it's going to continue permeating our culture, and as well as generations to come.
And if a child is unhealthy, they will not be able to learn. So
That's
is
true. So that's the thing.
A lot of parents have to understand that that's also an avenue for the children to express themselves differently and get off some of that energy. Like my son behaves better when he's at baseball because he's listening and playing
structured
than when he's in school. When I say in school, I mean
In
classes. I'm not academic. Yeah, I'm saying the wrong thing. Math, science, and social studies. Right.
Yeah,
the big
something
four.
he
Math,
likes.
science, social studies, and English. Right. It requires a different skill set.
So how can we reach you? How can we contact you as a parent? How can I get in contact with you?
So my number is 347-993-0270. Or you can also reach out to me at info@youthtribeathletics or youthtribeathletics@gmail.com. So I have many, or you can even go on Instagram at Youth Tribe Athletics. I also have a Facebook page. So I really want to reach out and work with people who's real. Like, I understand people are going through a lot during the pandemic, even financially. One thing with me is that I'm very understanding. If you tell me, hey, listen, I'm going through financial time right now, but this is how much we're able to afford, we will work with you. As you know, you're part of the community, and when time comes, we can definitely make something happen.
We appreciate that.
Well, I just want to say from Jennifer. Jennifer says,
Mhm.
Eugene, I commend what you're doing with future education for our youth in the primary grades. And you know, Eugene, I commend you too for
Yes.
your commitment and your because it's difficult to just try to even keep their attention. I remember when I was coaching football for the Brooklyn Skyhawks, and just you dealing with those young individuals, it's kind of tough. But man, once you instill with them the structure, man, it's so gratifying when they see when they're on that field and they execute. So my hat, I tip my hat to you on what you're doing, especially at a young age, to do what you're doing, basically giving back.
Yes. And you're the building block for healthy living. Thank you.
Thank you for the compliments. Appreciated.
I want to thank you also. So thank you for joining us right here in the village, Wesley. And
Thank you for having me, guys.
Thank you. So, Eugene brought up a couple of very important points that we have to look at in terms of youth health. And our next two guests, right? They want to talk about another issue that's affecting our young people, John. And sometimes I look at one of my sons and I think, you know what? Maybe he is suffering from this thing, right? And so at the end of the day, they're here to talk about it. Dr. Bryant brought that up a couple
A couple weeks ago, doctor.
weeks ago.
Not even a couple of weeks ago, a couple of months ago, you talked about it, doctor.
Yeah.
Nope, it was 2 weeks ago, 2 to 3 weeks ago.
I'm
We
trying
were
to give you
talking
a little
about
credit there. You just made me look bad.
it's all
All
right.
right. I ain't give you nothing no more.
I'm
Nothing.
telling you, boy.
Hello, ladies. How are you? Welcome to the village. We want to talk about dyslexia. This is a big, big topic overall.
Wait, hold on. Wait, pause for a second. Pause for a second. I'm sorry, Akeela and Naomi.
Yes.
Let me just say this right now. Joanne must love you because this is the most excited. Did you notice in the last section she was not excited at all? Did you notice that? Did y'all notice that when you were backstage that she wasn't excited? All of a sudden we talking about.
No. She gets disanimated when I talk about weed.
Yeah. Look at her face. You talk about weed. Look at the face. Look at the face. Look at the face. Look at the face. Look, she muted herself. All right. Go ahead, Joanne. Let me stop bothering you. Go ahead, Dr. Brian.
You know what? Dyslexia is a topic that's like taboo, and many people hear about it, but they really don't know too much about it. So we're excited to have you on because it not only affects. Is that you, Mr. Daly? Can you mute your
That's
phone?
not me. Don't be blaming me. And then I'm getting yelled at. It's Andre.
Please mute
Oh, it's
your
none
phone.
of us. Oh, you know what? I'm sorry. It's one of the guests. So you guys got to mute the phone.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Did you hear you apologize to me yet? Oh, you love me. All right, no problem.
Anyway.
I got you.
So, dyslexia is not only something that affects children, but it also affects adults. And that's one of the stigma that we want to address. So, ladies, please introduce yourself to our audience and what you do.
Thank you first for having me on the show. I'm super excited to be here. My name is Naomi Peña. I am born and raised in Manhattan. I'm from the Lower East Side. I have four kids. My three boys are dyslexic. And my oldest is 21. I have a 15-year-old and I have an 11-year-old twin boy who's dyslexic. And as a result, I found out that dad is dyslexic. So that's actually one of the first red flags of this learning disability is if you have someone in your family that's dyslexic, you have a high chance that one of your children will be as well. I'm a proud parent of the public school system, and I have 15 long years of experience of trying to advocate for, what I thought was the basic needs of my children, of my brown boys, so they can be successful. And as we will continue to discuss and the duration of the show, it's not as simple or as easy as one will think, at least naively of what I thought. It's just, let's solve this. And I looked like I had 3 heads. So as a result, myself and Akeela, we have joined forces to do something very innovative and different, which we'll talk about later. But that's a little bit about myself.
Yes, yeah.
Hi, my name is Akeela Azcuy. I have a doctorate in clinical psychology.
I want to go back for a second. I need for you to pronounce that last name again for me. Tell me a little bit about it before you did what you did.
Okay.
I know I interrupted you, but
Yes.
that's an unusual name. I've never seen it. So.
Dr. Azcuy, right?
Azcuy.
Azcuy.
If you were Cuban, you would say Azcuy.
Oh.
Mhm.
My husband is Cuban and Puerto Rican, and that's my maiden last name is Ali, which you see I kept.
Nice.
And then my husband's last name is Azcuy. Here, people pronounce it Azcuy. It's Cuban by way of the Basque country. So
Okay.
that's where the funky
With the
spelling
with the
comes
T
from.
sounds, so Azcuy.
Azcuy, exactly.
Perfecto.
But nobody says that. And my husband's a public school teacher in the Bronx, and nobody says it. There are all kinds of creative pronunciations high school students will come up with for that name. So thank you so much for having me on the show. I was really excited when Naomi reached out to me to join her on this because this is also a topic in my personal life and also in my professional life. So I have 3 children. I'm born and raised in New York. I went to public school here all my life. I have 3 children too that have been through the public school system, 2 of which are dyslexic. So I have 1 daughter and 1 son who are dyslexic and dysgraphic, and some of the other comorbidities in there as well. So, and one with ADHD, which is highly comorbid with dyslexia as well. It's up to 30% of comorbidity there. So that means that those 2 things, they occur together quite frequently. And I've also worked professionally with families, with kids who have these very same learning needs. I've worked in diagnosing them. I've worked in being the psychologist that's working with them and their families and helping their families to navigate public school systems, as well as trying to navigate my own children's public school experience with dyslexia, which has been and is for so many families extremely difficult to navigate.
Now, what is dyslexia? Can you explain to our audience for those who don't know?
Yes. So dyslexia is another way. It's called specific learning disability within reading. So that is specifically dyslexia is a learning disability in reading. Dysgraphia is a specific learning disability in written expression. And then you have a third type of learning disability called dyscalculia, which is, again, specifically for math. So dyslexia is specifically a reading disability.
And what does that look like? I think that's where Joanne is. Dr.
No. Actually, many people think or assume that dyslexia is writing backwards. So that's a myth that needs to be busted right away. She explained that dyslexia.
And I think that's where my question was going. Like, you understand it's a reading disability, a writing disability, and a mathematical disability. But can you explain what is this reading disability? Can you explain what this writing disability is? And just for the audience out there, the DIS, the DYS, hopefully I'm spelling that correctly, it means a lack of the ability to do something, whatever that ability is, right? So you add dysgraphia, dyslexia, dyscalculia, and there are other dysfunctionality. Once it's the DYS, for those of you who want to go to med school, right? It's like the root cause, the prefix that indicates a lack of ability to do something, right? So when you talk about dyslexia, what is the lack of the ability when it comes to reading? What is that lacking?
So there are many components for a child to be able to read. And dyslexia is when there's a problem in one of those functions. So reading is a combination of learning how to decode language, which is your brain looks at a word and then it looks at the letters that make up the word. And then it has to connect those letters to specific sounds or phonemes that they would call them. And the brain then has to work backwards, has to see the whole word. It has to break it down into each individual sound, then it has to reassemble it back together and create a word, which you then can read, right? That is the mechanic of reading. And then there is reading comprehension.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't read without being able to mechanically break it down and pronounce it. And you can't read without understanding the meaning of what you're reading. And so if your mind has a problem in any of those areas, you will not be able to read. And that would qualify you for dyslexia. Some kids are diagnosed with dyslexia when they can decode perfectly. They don't understand a single thing they're reading. Some kids are diagnosed with dyslexia when they look at the word and they have no idea of what the sounds are. They can't create the sound, so they can't create the word. So a child's brain does so many things to learn to read that any interruption in that process would be considered dyslexia in terms of what it looks like. Often what you see and how it's kind of picked up on, some people call it a discrepancy diagnosis. Because what you will see is a kid will often be very bright kid, but their reading capabilities are unable to keep up with their abilities in all these other academic areas. So that's what, if you're going to get an evaluation, which we can talk about, that is a whole other thing. They're looking for this gap in your ability and where your reading level is. And that depends on your age.
What we tend to find as educators is those who can express themselves. There's a lot of students who can express themselves, and that's why it's important to get to know the children, to express themselves verbally, but when it comes to reading, they start acting out. They start acting a certain way. When you tell them, hey, you have to write, some essays or whatever, you get the biggest
Every excuse.
one. That's a warning sign. That are some key warning signs for you to say, let's try. But they could explain everything. If you read it to them, not a problem. But it's misdiagnosed. And, children are placed in a certain category. Oh, just put them in special ed or whatever. But it's just, there's no diagnosis. Can you speak about New York State? Would that be considered something that, New York State would look at as a diagnosis for special ed or any other special services?
So the truth is there is some real legislation that has been introduced to start addressing this, because the truth is the inability to diagnose dyslexia is not just isolated to New York. Like, this is a national, federal conversation. Just like children in New York City are not getting diagnosed, there are children in Utah who are not getting diagnosed either. So this transcends color, this transcends income, but honestly, what makes it makes it possible to have the diagnosis is the income, which is a whole nother discussion. But there is some really great legislation that has been introduced. Several years ago, Joanne Simon introduced a bill that got approved where parents can now ask and demand to have dyslexia listed on their IEP. The truth is that, myself and Akeela, our two parents of children with students with dyslexia, have asked for it to be put on the IEP, and we have both been denied that right for a multitude of reasons that often don't even make sense. So even when there is legislation, the way it gets translated and trickled into our local Department of Education is where the problem is. But there is bills that they want to create universal screeners to start screening children very early on, so that we don't have to wait that they fail. Right now, what we call is a wait to fail model, where you wait until they're in second, third, fourth, and fifth grade to say, wait, this kid can't read. There's some other legislation where there's some, they want to create a task force on dyslexia to start coming up with conversations of why this is happening and what recommendations can be made. We have a great senator, Bobby Carroll, who's dyslexic himself. He has some great legislation around this as well. So there's a lot of great elected officials who are not only has this become personal because maybe they're dyslexic, but they also have someone in their family that's dyslexic. So they've taken up the cause. And oftentimes you will find people start activating once it personally affects them. Once it personally affects them, that's when people start moving.
I have a quick question for you. When did your husband find out he was dyslexic?
I'll be honest with you, it wasn't until I want to say about 5 years ago.
Ah.
He's 51, and he's an artist, and he makes his business off of Instagram. And it wasn't until he started, Instagram is a platform where you need pictures and a caption. And he was having a hard time spelling. And people on the internet aren't the nicest.
Not at all.
And they would be like, oh, you spelled this wrong, or you spelled this wrong. And it wasn't until it was sort of smack in his face. And being that I've been trying to advocate for our other boys for the last 15 years, it sort of hit him in the face where he was like, yeah, I'm dyslexic as well. And I was like, I think that's not something you want to say, hey, you're dyslexic. Like, I don't walk around diagnosing people. But I knew early on where, like, he would ask the kids how to spell what you would think would be basic words. And that's where I made the connection. And he made the connection later.
I wanted to jump in here too, because my father is a jazz musician, and I grew up my whole life with him asking me how to spell every single word he ever had to write. He would just write signs. He would want to put a sign in the bathroom because, we were two girls, we were always in the bathroom taking up time. He'd ask me how to spell every word, which is another very big indicator. There's something going on with dyslexia when a child is having difficulty with spelling. Mm-hmm. And the answer is not just spell check. Right. There are real interventions to teach it. It's not about making accommodation. But, my father grew up in a segregated public school system. He was born in the 1930s in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And he was never diagnosed in his entire life. So, I can't say definitively for sure he had dyslexia, but I can tell you that he never could spell a word, even my own name when he named me. Mm. So it was very, very likely that he had some kind of language-based learning disability. But because he was a Black boy in a segregated school system, nobody cared to take a second look at what was going on with him.
So I have a question for both of you. When you look at the inability to read, right, versus dyslexia, a parent who cannot read, is there a way to distinguish between the inability to read versus dyslexia? Because, it can happen because of, whatever the reasons are. It could have been a contributor or whatever the case, but how do you say to a person, that a grown person, like your husband, who obviously he was, what's that word? Trained, right? Because you were doing the work with the 3 children. So he saw that and then says, you know what, maybe that's where I get it from. But how about the parent who doesn't have the spouse or another person advocating to ask them a question?
Mm.
How do you distinguish, and how do you ask them to get help to confirm that, so that they can also at some point learn how to read? If that's the case, I don't know. Either one of you, don't worry about it. Don't stay there quiet. Sorry, call on the kid. Go ahead, doctor.
Sure. So I want to first make it really clear that dyslexia, while at one point in our history was, a really difficult thing to deal with, it is no longer an inability to read. Really, what it means is that you need to be taught to read in a different way.
Yeah.
And you can learn. The thing about it is, if you have the right intervention, which is, a multi-sensory structured literacy approach to reading and writing, because in fact, in order to become a strong reader, you also have to become a strong writer.
Yes.
They both work together. The
Yeah.
reading is the decoding, the encoding is the writing, and you get the combination of that to become strong in your literacy skills, right? So, 95% of kids diagnosed with dyslexia with the proper structured literacy intervention will become not just readers, strong readers.
Mm-hmm.
How do
Period.
you get an adult to? How do you get an adult who is suffering from dyslexia, dyscalculia, to address themselves and kind of work from there?
I think you need to start psychologically, because the amount of trauma and scarring that they potentially could have experienced in school, what you're dealing with in adults is much higher rates of adults who have undiagnosed dyslexia dropped out of school.
Yes.
Because the school dropped them, really, but they could not emotionally handle the treatment they get in the classroom when they were not being able to read. So they'd leave school and do something where they felt more successful and could derive a sense of self-worth and self-value, since school does not center kids who have dyslexia. Public schools just don't. I think with an adult, there has to be a point of healing and understanding that you are not lazy. All the things your teacher said to you over the years in school, that is not who you are. That your brain just needs to learn it in a different way and begin to understand and accept that you are smart, you are capable, you are bright, and we do have an intervention that works for you. And it has to be an emotional and psychological acceptance and transformation in how you feel about yourself in order to take that leap and say, you know what, I'm going to give this another shot. I'm going to try to read, and I'm going to trust the people you need help, right? You're going to need to seek out an expert in this, or a teacher who has this kind of training for adult literacy work. But I think it starts emotionally and psychologically, really, for an adult.
Akeela and Naomi, I just wanted to just jump in at this point in time, because I've been listening, and just knowing that if you was listening to Eric Adams, who's running for mayor, and he talked about dyslexia, and 30% of those who are housed in Rikers Island are dyslexic. And, what are we doing about that? And what's the root cause? And how do we it's not prevention, but what can we do to support them? And what services can we provide to help them during this period? So I'm asking you ladies, what can we do? Because we always, another phrase that Eric Adams talks about is we always picking people out of the water. How can we prevent them? How can we go upstream? And what can we what can we do to help them with their dyslexia, to prevent them from being so frustrated that they just want to get involved with the criminal justice system? Thoughts, ladies?
So, I've thought about this long and hard because I look at sort of the lifespan of my husband. He's a child born in the late 60s, was in the Bronx when the Bronx was burning, and being a youth. And then I look at, the experience of
I'm sorry. Go back. Did you say in the 60s?
He was born in the late 60s and he was a teenager in the 80s.
I'm sorry. Never mind.
That's okay.
I thought you said you. I was like, what?
He was a teenager in the Bronx when the Bronx was burning. And I look at the experience of my 21-year-old son. And, I think when we're talking about education in this country in general, we often love to pinpoint how our Black and Latin youth and the dreaded achievement gap and how they're separated and how, they're always at the bottom and people are at the top, that they don't look like them. And I have created a theory around this, that there is an achievement gap that is intentional. It is structural racism, because there's no way you can, if you lift everyone up, who is going to do the jobs that no one else wants to do? And the people that don't have those skills are often the ones that are the people who work in fast food, that are cleaning our houses, taking care of our kids, being the cooks in restaurants. And it's a lot easier to keep people divided, to make sure that there's an economic ecosystem of people with the skills.
So Naomi, what you're talking about a concerted effort by those who implement our educational system, conspiring to limit the resources that are necessary to assist those who possess such disabilities.
Absolutely.
Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. And there's a lot that is often said in the last couple of years with specialized high schools, and gifted and talented. And one of the things that proponents love to scream is fix K-8 and leave our schools alone. Worry about those other kids. And our argument is, if you really want to fix K-8, fixing dyslexia and providing evidence-based reading instruction will fix that. Now, what people will do in power, like, our expected Mayor Adams will do is to be said, but he has admitted that he has come to terms that he is dyslexic. And what is he going to do about it? I want to see, because if you are someone who had a disability and didn't know it till late in life, and you can connect the dots of your educational experience to your current experience and realize that there were structural systems in place that prevented you from getting to a point in your life where you wanted to succeed. The future mayor is one of those instances where he lucked out, but those who are sitting in Rikers did not. Right.
And they don't luck out. And what happens is they just sit there and they get so angry at the system because the system has failed them.
Absolutely.
The system didn't provide them with the resources that they needed to deal with this.
Absolutely.
And, I myself was diagnosed with a disability, and, they thought, but, I just worked a little harder to overcome it. And I had parents who were on me and provided what I needed to deal with it. So this whole conspiracy, which you have indicated, I believe it does truly exist. And it really commences in the classroom, to those educators who have the temerity to recognize it
Mhm.
and do something about it. Because there are those who are just, I mean, when I was growing up, you know, they always threatened to put me in special ed classes. My mother said, "Oh, heck no, you're not putting my kid in no special ed class." You know what I'm saying? Because he needed additional instruction. You know, my mother said, "Ain't nothing what a belt can't beat out of him." You know?
Kumbaya.
You know what? I have to jump in. I think overall,
No,
I hear what
Naomi
everyone is
and
saying.
Akeela, I got to tell you, this is the most she's talking. Man, she's so excited. I'm so happy. I don't even know what to do. Go ahead.
And that's why she was late. Oh, kumbaya.
Well, Jawan knows what's really important here. I can't say I disagree. I get excited too.
And let me tell you,
No. We
here's
are
the biggest
excited.
problem.
Trust me, we are very, very excited.
I know.
We're not used to seeing this side of her.
I'm rolling my eyes,
In all seriousness, she does do reading with the DOE, and so when she hears things
I
like
know.
it's like me, I love sports. So you hear talk about dominant sports, and they get a different look, right? So I'm just bothering her, but I know. Yeah,
But no, the biggest problem is it doesn't start with the teachers in the classroom. It really starts beyond that, because many of the colleges don't teach on dyslexia, so it goes deeper than that. So as a brand new teacher going into a school building, many of these teachers don't know because they weren't taught that. So it becomes a specialized focus. And years later, you're like, oh my God, I wish I knew this. Oh my God, I wish. That's why the big talk on brain science is big now. Hey, they use one curriculum, a one size fit all approach for everyone, military style. You do it this way or whatever. That doesn't work with all children. A one size fit all approach does not work with everyone.
The
And
other thing,
Mhm.
the other thing I wanted to add to that is the curriculums that the DOE contracts with that are the one size that they use, none of them have scientific evidence to back up that they
Exactly.
teach the largest amount of kids to learn. So you're in a public school system that's 80% Black and brown.
Mm.
And you're using a literacy instruction program,
That
Teachers
doesn't work for us.
College, Fontes and Pinnell. You're using these programs that have no scientific data to back them up.
Mhm.
Is that a responsible thing to do as a public school system that educates 1 million children a year?
You know what? I think it starts with educating those who are making decisions, those who are purchasing, and many people don't know. So, unfortunately, it's a system of not knowing, and hey, this worked with this population, or this worked with. I noticed that this worked with that school in Chicago, so we're going to implement it here. I, when I was doing my master's, my professor was one of the people who created this big program that was implemented in the early 2000s. And she said to us, it was it's from Chicago, whatever. She was like, hey, you know what? It's a big money thing. It really is. To boil it down, it becomes a big money thing. But now people are starting to look at the research. Now people are looking like, hey, you know what? It's not working. And when brain science research is coming into play, now people are stepping back. These curriculum owners and these big companies are like, oh, you know what? We were wrong all along. But hey, 21 years, 12 years, these kids still can't read or they're in jail. There's nothing you could do about it. So it's going back to education, and it starts not in when you're in the school system as a teacher, because as a teacher who is illiterate to all of this, you're playing, hey, you know what, let me try this, let me try that, this person says this, but nobody really knows unless you're a specialist at it. And that doesn't start in the school as a teacher, it starts beyond that.
You know,
So
Doc, just like Felicia just said, she said her comment is many educators have not been trained in their
yes,
coursework to teach reading.
that is true.
That's one component, and that is true.
That's a
But
big component.
but the whole point is being taught to be able to recognize that.
Right.
And that is the frustration which is evident on our children when they know they have a disability. Instead of acknowledging that, they rather just create I call it a diversion, and that diversion is therefore being disruptive, therefore getting involved into things that they shouldn't be getting involved in. The next thing you know, they're into the system.
That's
And it
why we
all
have
tends it's all because of their frustrations. We have another comment from Jennifer, and Jennifer says Dr. Bryant is very knowledgeable. Yeah, right. She is a New York City DOE reading coach.
Yeah, Dr. Bryant.
Kumbaya, Dr. Bryant.
Listen, you guys.
Not me. Not today's. It ain't me. Today ain't me.
Listen,
You know,
what's your-
I was going to say something.
Go ahead.
I think I want to think specifically back to the mid '80s.
I wasn't born then. Why?
No, you weren't. You came out graduating from junior high school in the '80s, and high school, and college, right? And I remember watching The Cosby Show, and I remember the specific episode with Theo Huxtable when he said he was going to NYU at the time, and he said, "I am dyslexic." And that was the issue. He was mixed diagnosed from he was a kid. And I'm just wondering, do you have like some kind of percentage numbers about how many of our young people who are misdiagnosed? Because it's important to understand that this impediment, I know John talked about the criminality of it, and Naomi, you touched on it, which bothers me deeply. So the criminality bothers me, but the economic downfall,
There you go.
especially for individuals who suffers from the socioeconomic standpoint.
Break it down.
So let's talk about that. What do you think are the numbers, if you have a number, and if somebody needs to find out if they're part of that negative number, what do they need to do?
Well, one of the, I'll answer all of those questions because there's a lot of questions in your question that are all really important. So dyslexia occurs in the general population about 10 to 20%. So if you look at, around our kids in public school system are 1 million kids, about, give or take, you're talking anywhere between 100,000 to 200,000 of them would be diagnosed with dyslexia. Now that's not even getting to the kids that we're going to call struggling readers.
So you say about 10 to 20%.
So
10 to 20% is in
out of 5 children.
Right. So basically, the other part to your question is the percentage of misdiagnosis. Now we know that happens much more commonly for Black children and for boys. And if you're a Black boy,
Preach, my sister. Preach,
it
my
is
sister.
even more common to be misdiagnosed. You will be told your child has emotional disturbance, ED. You will be told your child has ADHD, which they could have because it co-occurs with dyslexia 30%. But if they have the dyslexia, you understand the behavior is an expression of them not understanding and not being able to learn in the classroom. A child's mind, if they're not understanding the language, they're going to seek stimulation in the room that their mind does understand. So a young child especially is going to look around the room and say, oh, this teacher's reading or teaching me to read. I don't understand this. I'm going to go find something else to attend to because my brain doesn't understand what you're doing.
Correct.
That is an
So-
expression of a learning disability, but that will be misinterpreted. Oftentimes, conduct disorder, oppositional defiant disorder, a Black boy will often be misdiagnosed with instead of looking for a learning disability.
Oh man.
So there are so many, they will look at, because what is it that a teacher gets in the classroom? They get a behavior pattern. So they're really analyzing a behavior pattern, but without really having a firm grounding or understanding of what a learning disability is, B, what a learning disability will look like in the classroom when it's untreated.
Mm.
They don't have that instruction. They don't have the understanding. One thing I wanted to circle back to was the fact that Joanne, you said leadership also needs to have this background. Mississippi, and we've talked to people across the country in building the school that we're working on. We've talked to people across this whole country, from Mississippi to North Carolina to California. I mean, almost every major teacher training institution in New York City. We have partnerships with CUNY in our model to understand what our teachers taught, because students become teachers and teachers become principals in schools, right? So if you don't get the training as a teacher, you're not going to have the understanding as a school leader.
Right.
Mississippi gave a training program to every school leader in the state and the teachers called Letters.
Yes.
Which is specifically taught to train
That's the
teachers.
first time I seen her clap her hands too. Yeah.
See, now I'm really talking to her. I hope. I feel like I am. How a child's brain actually learns to read. And what Letters does is, when you know how a child's brain learns to read, you can then look at different curriculum and say, this is not going to work, or yes, this is going to work. And Mississippi saw in a national reading test that's given across every state, the largest gain in history, just simply by giving the Letters training to every school leader and every teacher. And the other point I want to just circle back to is, we spoke to the Eric Adams campaign, our team, before the election, and we talked to him about the Rikers Island data. And one of the other issues about the Rikers Island data that I think is really important to highlight is Rikers Island has a school in the prison for their incarcerated youth. And in that school environment in Rikers Island, do you know that the number of youth in that school ages 19 to 21 read below the 4th grade reading level? 60 to 80% of them, not 30%, 60 to 80% of this youth ages 19 to 21 enrolled in their school in the jail are reading below the 4th grade reading level.
And you know what that means?
Social justice issue. This is it. This is the social justice issue. This is really, the buck stops with literacy.
Yes. That is
You
it.
hit it. You hit it. What we call that, you hit a home run.
But you know what? Not many. I would say this. Having a background in ESL is great. Having a background in other special ed is great. But learning more about literacy and how the brain works is a whole nother avenue. And when we started our training with Letters in 2019, 2020, it blew my mind, because I'm like, oh my gosh. And it wasn't only myself, which I've been working for over 20 something years. So many other educators were not taught this. And doing a PhD is great, but now understanding the science behind it and how people actually learn it's a whole different realm. And you're like, wow, so many reasons why children were misdiagnosed
Mm.
and why so many still don't know. So you're learning as you're going, unfortunately, because you weren't taught correctly. So you have to learn how to learn correctly in order to become better educators.
So I want to go to both parents for. I know, Doc, you gave me all those numbers out there. Naomi's like, oh man, I have these numbers. They blow my mind. It blew my mind too. Like when you
And I
said-
have the book.
yeah. I don't know what that book is, but all right.
It's the letters.
The letters training book.
Yeah.
I'm glad Dr. Brown's the doctor for him who can read, so I'm glad for that. I'm taking a book out of John's page. A page out of John's book. See, what is that? When I say it backwards like that, that's another dysfunctionality, right? Anyway, no seriousness. Let's go to a serious thing. 5 children between the two of you. So I'm going to start with Naomi. What's that like for you at home as a parent? What were you identifying with your 3 boys? It drove you up the wall, or like John said, his parents said, the almighty belt will conquer all.
Dang, all right.
Well, what was that like for you? Because some of these parents that are in our audience and who will be watching and rewatching, right, will look at the almighty belt. Especially West Indian families, they have a tendency to say that child is bad.
You know, and just to jump right in, this is exactly how I was described. I was described as a student when I was in elementary school because I was very disruptive, didn't pay attention, and they diagnosed me as having attention deficit disorder, and my reading wasn't up to par. You know, I was smart in mathematics, but my reading wasn't up to par.
And just for the record, John is so he's not telling you.
Well, we'll get to that. But the point I'm trying to make is, at that young at elementary, when I was first, second grade, it's just like being able to diagnose that. And to me, you know, that diagnosis, you know, I have a learning disability. I need to go in a special ed class, instead of taking me to giving me the necessary test to actually see what it is that I possessed. But then, as I talk about, well, my father I never forget it, every Sunday, my father made me read the 23rd Psalm and do my multiplication tables every single Sunday, to the point where, you know, I would get scolded when I made a mistake. And I say that to say this: we have the ability to deal with many things, to deal with our disabilities. However, we just need that help, and we just need that structure. You know, we need that help. We need somebody to just guide us in the right direction. And I think once we're guided in that right direction, we can deal with it. But like you said, a lot of people fail to provide us the resources that are needed. You know, you talk about the letters, and there's so many other things that we could provide to our educators to help these young men and women out, to capture them in their beginning. You know, because by the time you try to catch them when they're in junior high school, at that point in time, they're so frustrated, they're so impatient, because they know that I can't do this. So how do I mask it? I mask it by being the bully, getting into trouble, being, you know, getting into the gang, and therefore I'm caught up in the system.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But I couldn't do that because, you know, I was worried about the almighty belt.
Can you tell us about your school that you're actually?
I wanted to, before we go back to the school, I want to go back to the parental piece, because I wanted to be able, for a parent to be able to identify things. I mean, John spoke about how his parent dealt with it, and the improvement level, but there are frustrated. So any other type you want to say, whether the parent is ignorant, whether the parent is smart, whether any left to right in how the spectrum is, right? But they don't know how to do it. How did you identify? Well, you had 3 different children over a 15-year experience, right? to be able to identify. Dr. Azcuy, she has obviously done some research, some studies. I don't know if your doctorate is in childhood psychology, this conversation, but then you're going to give advice to the parents who I don't want to use the almighty belt, although sometimes I am tempted. Yes.
Well, I will tell you that, 15 years ago, when I first met my son, and I say this often, like, these kids don't come with a handbook, right? There's no flow chart that says, if this, then do this. So initially, when we started in school, it was the classic, like, your kid's not focused. I think he has ADHD. Son is just drawing in class. And oftentimes you will find, individuals who are dyslexic are incredibly creative in other parts of their lives. Like, my kids can draw their little hearts out. I have a kid who's super athletic. And I was at that point, right? I'm from a Latin background, and we, we're raised with a certain mentality that you do as you're told, and there's consequences. But I had a moment.
Is it the consequence of Almighty Bell too?
Well, whatever, listen, I grew up in a time where the chancla came at you at
don't hide it. We all I told people who might be from different parts of the Caribbean. The repercussions were the same.
Yeah, when you saw the chancla coming, you were like, dipping and diving. But I had a moment with him where we were at the table, and I never forget this, and I'm like upset, and like, the kid is crying. I'm like, what are you doing? Why can't you get this right? I'm sick of the teachers calling me. And the kid broke down in tears and said, Mom, I don't know what's wrong with my brain. It won't let me. And that's where I had that moment of like,
wow,
this kid is not,
wow,
he's not that what he's being told to do. Like, he is not bad. He is struggling. So, after I got myself together, because I was a watershed of tears started coming out, I realized I need to figure this out. So it wasn't until I got the diagnosis, and I went and got the diagnosis on my own. I went through, doctors outside of DOE, because that was the first advice I was given is do not go to DOE. You will not get a proper diagnosis. So I went through my pediatrician. I told her what was going on. She then gave me a litany of referrals to go to different specialists. And then I gave all that documentation to the Department of Education at his IEP meeting, and they were like, all right, your son is dyslexic. And what I didn't know, and I then started doing research on my own, is I stumbled upon a reading program called Orth & Gillingham. And it's been proven, it's evidence-based, science-based, been proven to help students who are struggling readers or dyslexic to read. And I remember going to his school naively, going, hey, I just discovered this reading program, so can we put him in that class?
What is the name of the reading program again?
Orth & Gillingham. And I remember the principal looking at me and going, no. And I go, why not? And she goes, because it's incredibly expensive, and no school in DOE has that. You have to train teachers, and we don't have money for that. And then I had a moment of realizing that my kid is screwed. Ultimately, he's supposed to child to being two teachers in a classroom in an ICT setting, speech, OT. He's gotten every single pull-out service, every single thing you can ever think of, and it never helped. And, he walks around with 15 years worth of scars in his educational experience. I one time had a teacher who, at parent-teacher conference, I always look for my kid's desk when I walk in, and she had his desk facing the blackboard in front of the room by himself. I go, why is my kid sitting by himself? And she said, because he doesn't pay attention, and at least I can keep an eye on him. And I then told her, well, my son is dyslexic. And she goes, oh, that's just reversing B and D's, but he's in 3rd grade, so we're over that. And I go, it's not reversing.
Wow.
And like, this teacher has such a disdain for my son that she stopped talking to him in the middle of his educational year, to the point where even after he left her classroom, she would see him in the hallway, and that she would not even acknowledge his presence. And like, it bothered him. He would come home and say, why does this teacher not say hi to me? What did I do to her? And then, then we want, professionals of color, especially Black men of color, to be teachers. But if you treat them like crap when they're youngsters, they're not going to be want to teach
That is true.
as adults. So, I think as I started to pick up, there's other warning signs as well. Like my kids struggle to tie their shoes.
Wow.
And not just like a little bit. Like my 3 dyslexic boys did not tie their shoes until they were like 2nd, 3rd grade.
That's very interesting. Very interesting.
Another warning sign, because there's a direct correlation with the brain on how you need to work that mechanics and the way you need to read. And I remember when my 2nd kid, I went to the school and was like, listen, he's having a hard time reading. Can we get him screened? Can we get him diagnosed? Because he's dyslexic. And I had the guidance counselor literally tell me that I was crazy, that I needed to calm down, and that there are students that will read, past their 3rd grade and it's fine. And I looked at her and I said, it is not fine because I'm raising a boy of color and you're telling me that it's okay for him to fail. So I think a parent knows when there's something wrong.
Yes.
And my gut and my one advice that I've given every single parent that I've helped along the way is that you need to act on that gut. If you know that your teacher is telling you that there's something wrong and you know there's something wrong, but it's not what she's saying, it's something else, your first step is to see your doctor.
Wow.
Explain to them what's going on and get the referrals that you need. Unfortunately, getting a neuropsychological is not cheap. It's thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. But there are organizations that exist that can help you get a free to low cost evaluation. And that is literally the first step in trying to get the support, the help that you need for your child.
Do you have any off the top of your head or anything that any place where a parent can go?
There is an organization based out of Manhattan that I know, because I'm from Manhattan. They're called the Promise Project. That's one of the things that they do is help connect families with those resources. Parents for Advocates for Children is another organization. They're citywide. That's what they do. They're lawyers who help you connect with what you need to do. Sadly, and this is something that I've had to make the really hard decision because I am a firm believer in the public school system. I believe in it. But it wasn't until remote learning that I saw how incredibly neck deep my 11-year-old was in that he's in 4th grade and he was struggling. When you're online and you have to read everything, he was lost and it broke my heart. And he was telling me that he feels like he had a small brain and all that self-hating language that I knew did not exist because this kid's brilliant in other ways. So I've had to make the hard decision to leave the public school system into a private school that can teach him the way he needs to be taught. And that's expensive too. I have to hire an attorney and we have to sue the DOE and you have to put down a payment of tuition that's also not cheap. And this is where the inequities exist. And this is why myself and Akeela and a group of other moms want to eliminate that barrier of money and come up with the first ever public school system that is exactly for these students who need the support, where you don't need the money to get a diagnosis. You can have the supports for free.
All right, Akeela, I'm just going to give you 1 minute to answer that question because we have to get to another question because then we have to wrap up a little bit. So go ahead, Akeela. Same thing as a parent. What did that look like for you as well? And I guess from the educational standpoint as well, that you let us just throw that in there as well.
So, as a parent, I went through this, like twice basically. And I also, my PhD is in clinical psychology and I have done my training with children, adolescents, and adults. So I'm not a typical story in the sense that I have so much training in identifying, learning disabilities in kids that when the teacher was coming to me and telling me, very, very lovely, well-intentioned, beautiful teacher. My kids had a wonderful teacher. I think your son has, ADHD. Your son reminds me so much of my own son, and all of these, and it was very supportive and very loving. I knew based on signs I was seeing on like how his language, even like his expressive language. You could see how long it took him to be able to respond to things. Like he was really slow in responding. I said, I think there's something else going on with language. He also started talking closer to 3 than 2, it was like 2.5, 2 3/4, And so I got him evaluated very young. I got him evaluated in kindergarten. We had a diagnosis in kindergarten, which is extremely early, but even still, they would not put it on his IEP, and he did not get the services that he really needed. So I think that you need to, and then with my daughter, when she was going through it, I had the principal of my school tell me when my daughter was not knowing all of her letter sounds in kindergarten, oh, well, it takes time for kids to learn to read. And I said, well, I think I should get her evaluated. And she goes, oh, yeah, I don't think you need to. I did it anyway, because A, I know how hereditary dyslexia is as a professional. And B, I knew that if she's not getting any letter sounds at all, and then what was happening was she was being sent to the principal's office. The teacher, she took a long time to finish her work, and she really wanted to have the time to finish it. She was never had enough time. And she was being sent out of the classroom. She was being stigmatized and scapegoated in that classroom as a bad kid. At 5 years old, her birthday is in September. She literally turned 5 in the first month of school. And she was so horribly treated in her kindergarten class. So, if there is something, I just tell parents, if there is anything, like there could be anxiety, your kid doesn't want to go to school. I had my daughter say to me her entire kindergarten year, I don't want to go to school. Your kid is telling you, I don't want to go to school. It could be something like that. That could be a sign. Let's take a look at what is going on in the school. Let's see. And it's not going to be from the teacher. Talk to the teacher, but get your kid evaluated. Anxiety is a number one sign of something going on with kids, especially in those younger years. School avoidance becomes really big in like later elementary school and even junior high school. Kids will just stop going. High truancy rates, very much.
Ladies, sorry to interrupt, but something, this is so important. We have to wrap up, but I would love for both of you to come back, because I think we need to dedicate a whole segment to this, because it is so crucial, because we talk about what is the root cause of, we see crime in New York City rising to these levels, and figuring out the root causes, and this is one of the root causes.
And also, I don't know how immediate we can get you back with the cases, but also a lot of parents need resources. And I'm looking at our show is both, well, let's look at the national component, right? So pretty much on the East Coast. So if there's a national piece, right, that there's a national piece or whatever the case is, let us know, right? And then let them know. And I know Dr. Bryant, and since he's so excited, she's gonna have the lead on this to try to get you back, because there are other type of discs, right, that affect our young people, and a lot of dis and miss, right? So when I say the dis and miss, means that there's a lot of dysfunctionality in terms of whatever is happening, and then there's a misdiagnosis of those that lacking aspect. So I want to really thank you, Miss Peña and Dr. Akeela Azcuy, for joining us today on the Village, and we're looking forward to having you back. So Andre's clapping. Wow.
Yes.
Andre's clapping, and
we have to have you back.
So
I would love to. We would love to, for
You
sure.
know what? Maybe we can also have some people from the prison system as well, with the educational system as well, and some telltale signs on some things we can do to prevent more of our Black Black and brown students, children, young people, boys, girls, whatever, going into the jail system and avoiding this. They're looking for an outlet, but we have to find a different way. And thank you. Thank you,
Thank
Felicia.
you.
The term reading intervention needs to change. A specialist that pulls the child out to work with them isn't working. The child goes back into the same class with the teacher that is not informed. We must into the classroom. DOE is addressing this with the reading coaches, specifically working with the teachers and students. So changing and educating the mindset and educating parents as well is number one. And that's what you guys are doing, and we thank you.
And thank you so much for joining us right here.
Thank you, ladies.
All right.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you for having
Actually,
us.
you know what? I'm here.
All right.
And we would love to provide you with parent resources. We have documents with parent resources we could share with you, and you can share with your listeners. And
You can email it to Andre at the Village Show.
How can we
Okay.
reach you? Wait. Before you leave, how can people reach you?
Well, I can be reached in many different ways. Preferably, I do Twitter. I'm a big Twitter person. So you can just reach me at Naomi Peña NYC. That's where I'm at over there. I'm also on Facebook, and I'll give it to Akeela.
yes, you know what? I'm gonna type. Can I type it in here? This private chat. There's an email that our group is using. That's forming the Manhattan Literacy Academy, which is the first school to do this work in the public school space. It's called NYC Literacy Academy at gmail.com. And I'm happy to give my personal email as well, which is artgig, ARTGIG at gmail.com.
Wow, ladies, thank you, man. Wow.
So I this is such an important topic, and I can't stand parents left out there in the cold and the dark in this with their children. So,
And you will be back.
I will be happy to be back.
We'll be back. You just tell us when. We'll be here.
All right, thank you.
Bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, you've been watching, listening, paying attention to The Village right here on 92.1 FM GD Radio. You can reach us on Facebook at Roderick F. Daly, Dr. Joanne Bryant, Sophia Willissey, Andre Dolman, Tawana St. Paul. You can also listen to us directly on YouTube at The Village Talk Show. All interesting topics today, very good comments. I'm sorry, audience, if we did not get to all of your comments that you put out there. Thank you to Jennifer and Felicia for your Star Girl. And I hate when I start naming because then I forget names. But thank you everyone who watched, listened, and responded to this important topic. Before I close, I want to pay homage to a young man who was my keynote speaker for college, Dr. Cornell West. He passed away.
No, he didn't. He retired. He retired. He retired.
Who talking about passed away? What is this? He retired. He resigned from Harvard.
He left Harvard.
I am going.
My bad.
Andre, I am going to kill you.
He retired from Harvard because of this back and forth. We're not
On that note,
Andre,
The Village.
Well, anyway, I'm still giving homage to him just the same because he was my keynote speaker in college and one of the most profound persons, literate out there, an orator who talk about being a proud person in the African American diaspora and history. Written many books and one of the most qualified professors at Harvard. So congratulations on your retirement. I will take the deceased part back, and Andre and I are gonna fight off the air.
It's my fault. It's my fault.
But either way, just what? What do you say, Joanne?
It's my fault. It's my fault.
Okay. It's Joanne's fault. All right. So then don't let me kill my producer. All right.
No,
God bless everyone. Please do enjoy your weekend, your time, and thank you for joining us right here
At The Village.
on The Village.
Thank
Talk
you.
Show. Until next time. God bless.
Bye-bye.